Hey everyone. So I hope everybody had time over the last week to go over those different settings on your camera and figure out what it is that you want as your style, right? How do you want your pictures to look, especially in low light situations? Do you like more grain in your pictures? Do you like them to be a little smoother, but you're going to take a little bit of motion blur? What is it that you want to get out of those pictures? Now that you know that, it's time to plan. So, what we're talking about here is getting as close to the environments you're going to shoot in as possible. If you can get to the actual venue you're going to shoot in, then that's the best. If you can do it before you need to shoot, you can do it beforehand. If you've got some time before you actually have to do your shoot, but bear in mind that's going to be a little bit tight time-wise, right? You're going to have to get a lot of stuff done. The more familiar you are with the settings that you want to use on your camera, the faster you'll be able to get this stuff done. So if you're not that familiar with the different settings and how the things are going to look like when you take your pictures, walk around your house. All right, you can probably replicate a lot of low light situations in your home. Lights off, different times of day, things like that. See what you can work out with your camera. Get used to taking pictures that way and get used to the settings and what it is that you want to see. Do you want more grain? Is what you're doing posed for the most part, so you don't have to worry about motion blur? What do you need to do? But then, if at all possible, get out to the venue and take pictures at the venue. Now, if you've got the practice at home, you're going to have that muscle memory of just dialing those settings in and getting everything done. For me, if I take a gap, I forget which way some of the settings turn on the camera. So my dials, I get them reversed. And instead of going faster with shutter speed, it goes slower, or I dial the ISO up when I want to dial it down. You get used to it, but it's not something that necessarily you're going to maintain if you take a month or two off. Once you've got that in place and you've got all your settings that you want, you know what you're looking for, then you go take pictures at the venue. Now, granted, you may not be able to get pictures of people in it, but verify that what you think the settings are that you want to use are what you want to use, if at all possible, right? And that's where, if you've got a little bit of time beforehand, that's okay, because that should be enough time to go do that. And if you're trying to do all your settings and figure everything out, give yourself more time. Once you've got those dialed in, right, if your camera allows it, this is where saved settings can come in handy, right? Like if I'm going to be inside a building, let's say at the fort, I'm in one of those buildings where they're doing the tailoring, for example. Well, they've got a window on both sides, but just down from there, so they'll have the two windows open and the two light coming through the two windows. They may leave the door open depending on what the weather's like outside, so there could be a good amount of light coming in. But the other ones downstairs don't have a window on the back wall. They have one window in the front. They may or may not have a door close by, which, depending on where the door is and what's between you and the door, of course, can lead to some interesting shadowing issues that you'll have to deal with. And again, these are things that you need to know up front. For example, the tailors at the fort usually work downstairs. They're by a window, okay? So I've got light coming in the window on them, but the rest of the room is pretty dark. Even with the door open, it's pretty dark, but there's a wall behind them. All right, so the window's there. It's got a wall next to it with an opening. There's a door on the other side of that opening at a right angle to it. If that door is open, then light comes in, hits against the wall that's there, and spills into the room that way. Now when you're trying to take a picture, not only are they more or less backlit because of where you are in relationship to the window is to your front, you have this light spinning around the side that can bring a little bit more light into the situation. So in that kind of situation, if you have somebody with you or have a way to set up a reflector, then you can grab that light that's kind of hiding behind the wall, right? You just got that one opening, but if you could put the reflector in there, you could grab that light and bounce it off of these guys. So instead of having bright backlit light to deal with, you now have this reflected light that's on them that can counteract some of that and give you a better shot and allow you to lower your ISOs and up your shutter speeds, etc. But you won't know that unless you've actually walked the area and seen what the options are going to be and what could possibly happen. Now, granted, some places you may not have everybody in place if you're shooting an event at the time. Again, if you've got somebody with you that can substitute in for those particular situations and those positions, that can be very helpful. But if you don't, and it's an event like the forts have where they have workstations, you can see what the workstation is. You can see where they're going to be working and at least get a feel for the area. Again, because of this area downstairs, the windows are farther away from the door. Because of that, you're not getting as much benefit in the lighting as you do on that top floor, where you have not only a smaller room, so the window is closer to the door, but there's also that secondary window to get light in from, which is why they're up there stitching things together, because one of the best lit areas inside at the fort. Then there's the exhibits. So if you're going to be taking pictures at a place that have exhibits, you got to remember the primary thing is going to be, in those situations, glass, right? A reflective surface, something that's either going to reflect your image in your photograph or is going to prevent you from using any kind of real lighting on it. If you're going to be shooting something that's behind glass, if you can put a light in from the side so that that's hitting the objects and not hitting the front glass, that obviously is best. But again, you're going to have a lot of situations with those setups trying to shoot through glass. You're going to bounce the light back to yourself. You're going to end up in your own shot, those kinds of things. Again, walking the venue so you can see what your options are and what your angles are going to need to be will make it a lot more efficient for you and a lot easier for you to catch those shots that are unexpected, right? Something you didn't see going to happen, and you can catch that shot because you already know what angle to shoot from. You already know what your settings need to be. You're ready for whatever happens. Even if you just walk through the door, you dial those settings in before you walk through the door, you're ready to go. You're going to go back outside, dial the new settings in for outside, and you're ready to go. So plan out what your area is going to look like. If you can, pre-program as much of it as you can. And of course, there's always just remembering what your settings need to be, right? When I go in and I'm shooting and I've got my ISO and my shutter speed, I can drop down to 1/80th of a second. I already know going in that I want to have a 4.5 to a 5.6 on my F. I know I can get my shutter speed down to 80, and that lets me a little flexibility. I can play with that ISO a little bit, right? Because some of those areas will be more well lit than others, and depending on the time of day, some things are going to be more well lit than others. The position of the buildings are going to change the way the light is coming in depending on the time of day. If you've got a building that's got glass on the east and west, well, at high noon, that's going to be about as dark in there as you're going to get, and as most light balanced between both sides as you're going to get. Then everything back after that is going to give you shadows either on the morning coming in or in the afternoon coming in. But you won't know that unless you can go and walk the venue that you're going to be in. And you can find some really cool ways to get lighting knowing these things, right? There's a lake up there, using the lake as a backdrop and maybe with the sun going down. But again, remember, things are only open certain amounts of time, so some shots will be impossible to get. But knowing those certain things, or knowing that you got a beautiful grove of trees, and you would love to get a picture in there, but you know that you've got to wait till about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the light to come through those trees and stream the way you want it to. The only way you're going to know that is to do your research and a plan. And the only way you're going to be able to do your research is to be there and to see what it looks like at that particular time of day. Then you can lay out the shoot that you want to do, knowing what your conditions are going to be and when they're going to be the way you want them. So this is pretty much about style, though. It's how do you want your photo to look? When you're shooting indoors, or you've got hardly any light except what's streaming through the trees, how do you want your photos to look? Do you want them to be crisp? Do you want them to have a little grain? Do you want them to have a lot of grain? What type of photograph do you want to make? Then that will inform you as to what settings you want to keep in the range of, which will then help you when you're trying to get things set up for these particular photo sessions. And that's what I got for you guys this week. I will talk to you all next week.